And now on the line is Jonathan Lewis from Aidlink. Jonathan, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Okay, Jonathan, this is my third interview with Aidlink. I last interviewed Aisling Lennon around a year and a half ago, and I understand that Aisling is no longer working with you. I got in contact with you this week to do an interview about your work in Aidlink with World Toilet Day being celebrated earlier this week. Before we talk about that, could you give our listeners a reminder of who Aidlink are and tell us about the main work that you do every year?
Yeah, sure. So Aidlink is a small Irish NGO working primarily in Kenya and Uganda. So we work with nomadic pastoralist communities in Kenya and Uganda and living in extreme poverty. So communities that really don't have access to schools, don't have access to education, and as I'll tell you, don't have access to water, sanitation, or good toilets. So that's the primary focus of our work. We sort of center around education, and then also bring in water activities and agriculture as well. So to try and create sort of holistic programs.
And you do a lot of work on development education as well, don't you?
Yeah, so we work in Ireland as well, in schools in Ireland in development education, trying to inform students on how to make a better world. And how to sort of be aware of the wider world around them. And hopefully that will lead to students in Ireland growing up to become better ambassadors for Ireland in the sort of global world.
You have an immersion program, don't you?
Yeah, so our immersion program runs in a few schools in Ireland, and students will go over to Kenya, Uganda and Ghana once a year, and they will come from Irish schools, go and spend a week sort of like an exchange program in Kenya, Ugandan or Ghanaian schools, and they will sort of live with families and get to know the students and really sort of see the cultures of those communities, just so they can sort of have their eyes opened to what's going on outside of Ireland and outside of their community and their school.
And you're involved with the website developmenteducation.ie, aren't you?
Yeah, so we're actually one of the founding members, the CEO of Aidlink, Anne Cleary, was one of the founding members of Development Education, which is sort of like a portal that schools and educators can use to sort of learn more about development education and what it means to be involved in development education.
When you say you are a small NGO, like how many people do you help every year, do you know?
So in the office we have there's three of us in the office in Dublin, and we work primarily with partners on the ground in Kenya and Uganda. So even though we're a small organisation in Dublin, we have very, very strong partnerships that we work with in Kenya and Uganda and in other NGOs that will implement the work that we're doing in Kenya and Uganda. So our partners in Kenya and Uganda are all run by local people that know the context and know exactly what's going on in their own communities. And they will go into the community that we work in and they will implement the projects there.
And you and your partners help a few thousand people every year, I think it is it?
Yeah, so we work primarily through schools as entry points to communities. So yeah, thousands of people each year, educating people on child rights, on water and sanitation, building schools in some places, building latrines, building boreholes to ensure there's clean water. And the impact of this, even though there are direct beneficiaries, the impact of this is sort of felt throughout the community. As people become more educated, they teach their families, and they teach the other people in the community, and it sort of has a domino effect throughout the communities that we work with.
And it's a rural areas you work in, is it?
Yeah, so it's really, really remote rural areas outside of the cities of Nairobi and Kampala, the capital cities of Kenya and Uganda. We're working in very arid regions. So recently in Kenya, for example, there was in the area that we're working, there's been a drought for 3 years where people haven't had access to water, and not a single drop of rain has fallen for 3 years. And last month there was then severe floods. So we're working in really rural areas, really isolated and marginalised areas that are also being affected by climate change, and are sort of at the heart of the climate change problem.
Okay, I know you take part in Walk for Water and Sanitation, and a World Toilet Day was celebrated earlier on this week. Can you tell our listeners a bit about World Toilet Day and what the day means to you?
Yeah, so World Toilet Day was sort of created as a UN day in 2013, and it sort of gets NGOs and other organisations to campaign around a common theme. And for us, World Toilet Day really means sanitation. And for the work that we do, because we're mainly based in schools and education, we see the lack of toilets in developing countries and in poor communities in Africa as being a real barrier to education, and specifically a barrier to education for girls and women. So for us, it's about sanitation, but it's not just about sanitation. Sanitation is seen as a barrier to entry to education as well.
And did you do anything on World Toilet Day to celebrate the day?
We didn't do anything specifically to celebrate it, but my colleague Anne Cleary is actually out in Kenya at the moment doing a monitoring trip. So she's out sort of looking at her projects, making sure everything's going to plan, and she's monitoring all the projects, and she is, yeah.
Okay, and you take part in an initiative called Walk for Water and Sanitation every year, don't you?
Yeah, so this is basically trying to, so similar to our development education program, trying to make children and students in Ireland more aware of the issues around access to water around the world. And each year we get pupils and we work with pupils to march and to improve awareness around the lack of water in developing countries around the world. The lack of clean water.
Is water and sanitation? Because it used to be called that, I think, was it?
Yeah, so all these things are linked for us. So clean water leads to healthier lives, and healthier lives means children can go to school more often, and that improves performance in school. So all of these things are linked. When we talk about water and toilets, that's linked to sanitation, and the sanitation issue is linked to education and schooling and performance in education as well. So yeah, everything is linked.
Okay, John. Do you have any big plans in Aidlink over the next few months, leading us into 2020?
So we'll continue our projects in Kenya, Uganda, and then we have immersion programs going to a number of countries at the start of next year and in the middle of next year. And then at the end of next year, we'll have our big fundraiser, and moving towards Christmas next year, we'll have our big fundraiser. But if people want to find any other information about the organisation, they can find us on our website, aidlink.ie, or on our Facebook page, which is just Aidlink.